Thank you so much for all for joining us again for session number 2, part 2 of structured query language with the QWERTY Suntak Quantitative and Computing Lab, sponsored by the CMC Office of Alumni and Parent Engagement. Really looking forward to passing it over to Dr. Park and Vanessa to lead us through the session, but just a couple of heads up. We will continue to have additional sessions, hopefully, on different quantitative computing skills throughout the year. We've got our eye on Python potentially for later this year, all things being well. But in the meantime, I hope that you will join us for other sessions on things like virtual archive exhibits and our 75th ATH speakers and alumni ATH speakers. We actually have our next session on the archives talking about campus architecture and art coming up on Monday. So hopefully you all got that in a Sunday email digest. If you need anything, please don't hesitate to send me an email. Obviously, I'll send all my credentials at the end, but hopefully you've been getting lots of messages from me. Just a last couple of things, just because we have a big group like last time, we have it set up so that messages will be directed towards me and the other hosts. So that's Dr. Park, Vanessa, and our student worker with the Sam. That being said, hopefully we can help out with anything. And without further ado, I will pass it over to Dr. Park.
Thank you, Josh. Thank you, everyone. Welcome, everyone, joining us today. Can I see your hands if you are joining us today, this second session for the first time? You didn't, meaning that you didn't participate in the first session last week. One, Cheryl. Okay, yeah, good. Just a heads up, last time the session 1 was all about the installation of MySQL server and client, SQL clients. So all the other participants here have installed the MySQL server and the client so that they can just start the SQL query on their computer. Cheryl, if you don't have the MySQL server and the client installed, probably I or Sang Yoon can help you in a breakout room to make your system available, for this workshop. Just on the chat, just let me know, okay? All of you, if you have not had this SQL computing environment set up, let us know, me or Sang Yoon Kim, so that we can meet with you in a breakout room to go over the installation. So before we start the workshop today, I just wanted to give you some more information about the data science capstone. You may think of this as a commercial break before you start your actual session. So the QCL, the Multi-SUNAC Quantitative and Computing Lab, I'm the director of the Multi-SUNAC QCL. And through the QCL, we run a data science capstone program, which is actual, graded course for the data science students here at the CMC. So I just wanted, for about 3 minutes, I will just give you a quick overview of that capstone program, because I really want you to be participating in this capstone program if you have any data project available for our students. So the data science capstone program is a 15-week industry academia collaboration program. And we will have, every semester we will have about 20-some students, seniors and juniors, who are majoring in data science at CMC. So it is team-based. So each team will have 4 seniors or juniors, and majoring in econ, finance, math, stats, and computer science, and so on. They all come to the data science capstone program at the end of their, years, college years. Student qualification, they all are exposed to these courses, regular courses, Python, and fundamentals of data science, which is R and SQL. they learn SQL from these fundamentals of data science. They also use SQL on different courses like data mining, machine learning, and so on. And they also use R and Python programming languages in their statistics courses. So all the students in data science capstone program, they are qualified for this background, with this background. If I give you a quick introduction of the Capstone clients so far, we have Dodges, Disney Streaming, Storyhouse Ventures, Engage, NBC Universal. They are new, not new. They are the current clients. We have had, internet brands, Avo, also City of Ontario, and all these are our current and previous clients. If I give you a couple good example of that project, you may wonder what's the data science Capstone projects. One of the examples here is the NBC Universal. Because of the pandemic, they, many companies, they went to the virtual online environment. So working from home. So they wanted to see this group of NBC Universal company wanted to see how this whole work from home environment actually affected their employee engagement. So they have some data through their email, their chat, and so on. Not the specific data, but the timing of the data, how frequently they, held their meetings and so on. So they wanted to see that, employee engagement metric through this data. Also, Dodges is current our clients. They have a, the baseball is all about data. And the Dodger Stadium has lots of sensors, including the cameras and so on. So they call it StatCast. And through the StatCast machine, the video cameras and so on sensors, they have a ball trajectory data that is thrown from the field to the first baseman. So they have all XYZ ball trajectory data and wanted to see which player is a good first baseman. And by using this data sets, by defining the success and failures through this ball trajectory data. So those are really good examples of the data projects. So I am inviting all of you to see if your company has any project data related projects for the students. So the timeline is, for this coming academic year is before we start, probably we'll start looking at the projects starting on, June or July, maybe June, mid-June, to start thinking of these proposals. So that's about the information on the data science capstone. If you have any projects, let me know. All right. So, okay. So that was the first few minutes of this workshop. Vanessa, you ready to take on? All right.
I am ready.
All
hello,
right.
everyone again. All right. Hello. Okay. I'm hoping you guys had a great week last week and that you're ready to learn some SQL. Let me start sharing my screen. Make sure I'm on screen too. Here we go. Okay, can everyone see my SQL and it says basic on it? Great. Okay, so let's start off by everyone opening up their data grip. If you have it on your desktop, you can open it from there. If not, for most, for Mac, you might find it in your Finder in your applications. And for Windows, you can go down to the Start button and you can either look for it by typing in the name of it, or going to your programs and going down into from the start button and finding it there. I'm not sure how your computers are set up, so those are just some ways you can find it. Does anyone not have it open yet? Let me actually make sure I have all of my stuff here. Okay. Participants. Okay. Okay, it looks like everyone, I don't see anyone raising their hand, so it looks like everyone has their data grip open, so let's get started. Okay. Let's see if I can get out of here. Here we go. All right, so here we go. So last week, we downloaded MySQL server, and we downloaded the client, our IED, which is our data grip by JetBrains. That should be on everybody's computer, and you should be looking at your environment of data grip as of now. So next, let's get those files to start importing our data into data grip, okay? So we can get started with these sessions. So I want everyone to go. I don't know why my computer is being a little weird right now. Let me move this to the section. My little tab is not coming up from the bottom, so I'm going to be going through this a little differently. So I'm going to send this to everybody right now. There's a link in the chat. This is going to take you to this Box website. You should see, let's see if does anyone not see this website? What page? Everyone good? Okay, great. So we're gonna be working with these files today. There is a lot of files here, but we have already used some of them. So we did do the pre-workshops, which was the installation, and the part 1 PDF, which was the first our first session. Our part 2 is what we're going to be doing today. If you do want to follow along with that, with the slides itself, I did provide you with the slides today. And we have some other files down here, which is our state workforce, which is a hands-on that I will be giving you some activities to do after the class, because we actually don't have time for this class, this session, to be able to do all the activities, but it's a good way for you to kind of practice outside of this session if you want to learn more about SQL. And then we're going to be using state crime as our as the file today to go through and kind of look through and use SQL on. We're also going to be using state, I believe it's state people insert, and you'll see that how we're going to use that today, but that is a SQL file. So you're going to have access to a SQL file today and see how to use that within your data grip. You also have this state computer data, which will be used for your activities after class, so you can practice. I do provide you with a text file, which we will use later. As of now, we won't talk about that, but if you do need it, it is there for you. And then the activities is for later on if afterwards, if you need help with those activities. And this will all make sense once we get into the session itself. So let's start off by downloading these onto your computer so you have access to them. I want everybody to go to these little 3 dots at the top. It should say more options, okay? I want you to click on that and hit download. Click on download. And again, like always, this window will pop up for everybody. For our Mac, I believe it's just a save file. Also for Windows, please click Save File and then click OK. Depending on your browser, you'll either have it at the top or you'll have it at the bottom. For me, because I have Firefox, it's at the top. If you're using Chrome, I believe it's at the bottom. You're gonna click on the little down arrow if you have Firefox or your file itself. And for our Mac users, it should already be a folder that you already have on your computer. For our Windows users, we are going to have to extract it. At the top here, you're going to have an extract all, and just click on that button, and it's going to show you the destination on where it's going to be located on your computer. Mine is located in downloads, and it's going to be named SQL with a 1 because I have already downloaded this before. For you, I'll probably say just SQL, and you're going to click extract. Sorry. Okay. I have a dot on each file. I have a Mac. There is a download arrow, not 3 dots on the right, and also the 3 dots per file. Oh, that's interesting. For the website itself, it's 3 dots per file. For the Mac, I have a Mac. There is a download arrow, not 3 dots. Yeah. Okay. So for that one, I will show you which ones to download. Okay. Once you hit extract for our Windows, you should have access to that folder and be able to go into that folder. For our Mac, you said that each dot here has a you download from here. So please, for Mac, if you just want to download the files that we need, so you don't have to download each one, you're going to click on the down arrow key that you have. And then go over, oh, why is it not? Okay. Click on the 3 arrows and you can do download on each one that you need. Today, like I said, we're going to be working with state crime.csv. That's the first one we're going to be working with. So please download that one first. And the second one, which I can tell you quickly right now, oops, will be, sorry, I forgot which one it was going to be. State computer data. So the other one we're going to be working with today, which for some odd reason, here we go. The other one we're going to be working with today is going to be the state computer data. So you can download this one as well for our Mac users who are just downloading those 2 for today. Okay. So let's go. Okay, do you mind putting it in chat? What we should download? Yeah, absolutely. It will be state crime.csv. And it would be, oops, I sent it just to you. Copy. And then the next one is our state. Click off of that. The next one is going to be state_computer_data_insert. Make sure that I have that correct. Yes, insert.
I just typed in it.
Oh, thank you so much. I was taking too long with my typing, so sorry. Okay, so those are going to be our 2 files we're going to be using today for most of the session. So let's see here. Let's talk about our agenda today. I'm going to go over kind of very briefly what just a review of what we went over last time, and then we're going to be looking into the basic SQL statements, and then our SQL database query difference, data grip itself, and then basic SQL commands. We're going to do our hands-on activities after that. Lastly, I'm going to show you the operational order of how this program actually thinks about the way you write your query. All of this will make sense towards the end. Throughout the session. As of now, I know that this is all just words in ears right now, but I will absolutely, you'll understand this by the end of the session today. I'll give you resources for if you want to learn more about SQL after this, and then some contact info if you do want to contact me with any questions. Okay. All right, and then I have, we get an error for, what do you get an error for? And then I have another question. Did you log into Box website? I don't see the 3 dots. Okay, so let me do that website one more time. The website, you don't have to log into Box to get the files. You once you go on to, oops, I sent it to just one person again. Here we go. Once you go into the website itself, it should be at the top here where it says all files, and then it says workshop SQL. There should be 3 dots. When I click on the 3 dots next to it, says I try to open, I get an error. Interesting.
So Vanessa, could I jump in real quick?
Yeah.
So when I click the link that you just send, I also don't get the same page. But what I'm seeing is it gives me a list of 10 different files that I can possibly download. And,
okay.
I can show you what I'm seeing if you'd like. At the top right-hand corner, there's an option to download them all. And if I'm correct, we're going to be using them all in this session. So that might be the fastest way. Yes,
that would be the fastest way. But if that's giving you an error, I do have another website that everyone can download it from, because this is our box, but I also have a GitHub that you can download it from. I don't know if that would be easier for everybody to download it from there.
Yes, when I open the box folder from the incognito window,
yes,
it gives me the download button on the upper right corner. I can quickly share this.
Yeah, that'd be great.
It is a
let me stop sharing so we can see.
Yeah.
There we go.
So this is the probably most of the people who are not doesn't have the CMC account. So what you need to do is just to download all the files here by clicking on the download. It will start downloading it. It forces you to sign up or log in, but you can just start downloading it. Just wait for a couple seconds and it will start downloading.
Okay. So that's what you see on your computer, right? Everyone who has an error is that picture there. So it says, when I click on the 3 dots, there's an error, there's application open. It is better. They'll see the error above. Open application. Yes, that'd be great. Can you let Allison speak, unmute so she can talk and see what we can do?
This is probably similar to what the other Mac people have. So I had that big download thing in the upper right, but instead of that, I individually downloaded the 2 files that you had mentioned.
Yes.
And the state crime was fine. The state computer data insert.sql. And when you download it, it looks fine. But when you click on it to open it, we get an error that says there is no application set.
Yes.
To open this document.
So with that SQL, you're not able to open it on its own. You actually need the data grip program to open it. So I will be showing you how to do that later on in the session. The state crime, it is a CSV, so that is able, once you click on it, it will open. But the .SQL is actually a drag and drop into your data grip that I will be showing you how to do later on today, later on in the session.
So then we should just leave them
closed. Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Okay, I'm glad. Okay, so that is with going on with that. Everyone, is anyone still having trouble downloading the files? Okay, as far as I see no hands. Great. Okay, let me start sharing again. Screen 2, share. Okay. All right. So everyone see agenda? Great. All right, so last time we talked about how SQL is called a structured query language, that it is part of CRUD. It creates, reads, and updates and deletes. So I'm going to go a little fast with these because we have already covered these. We talked about relational databases, how it's a collection of tables, and each table has columns and rows, and each row is called a record. And altogether, it's called a schema, which this would be a small schema in short. But we also talked about how they are able to be have a relationship between each other, because we'll have columns that are the same, named the same, and have the same information that we can connect them together, which is called a join. So we talked about this last session as well. I also gave you an example on what a big schema looks like. It looks very tiny here in tiny letters, but all of these are all different tables that have information on them that you can relate together. So we saw all of this last session. And then lastly, at the end of the session, I gave you an overview on the interface of data grip itself. And we created our first query, our database that we will be using today to write our queries in. Okay, so what you should be seeing right now today is this here, but with a new console that we opened. So it should be blank. You should have console one, console by itself, and a new console that is within the database. Now, if you don't have that, when we start the hands-on part, I will show you how to do that. But that is our interface that we ended with last session. Today, let's go a little bit more in depth into the relational model and look at that table again, because we will be looking at tables throughout the whole session. Now, again, a row can also be called a tuple or a record within SQL. This is going to be your data point. It's also going to be your information. So we have the customer ID, we have their IDs number 1, Chase, and then their status is active. This is just an example. Has nothing to do with the data we're doing today. It's just an example for you to kind of understand a relational model. It kind of looks like Excel if you've used Excel before. Our column is going to be called an attribute or a field. But this is where all the information is going to be for let's say you have a question that you asked on a survey. All of your information will be here, but each row is going to be a different data point or a different record of that question or that field, that attribute that you had. So this is all just vocabulary we're learning as of now. And then lastly, when you use this type of table where it has rows and columns, you can call this, and all your data is in there, it's a stored tubular data. That is what we're going to be calling any information that is within a table itself. Then we have, again, all those rows that have information that we can relate from one table to the another that you saw in this example here. So that first row, where it's the customer ID, has unique information in it that's not going to be duplicate. So that means that you're not going to see 1 and 1. You're going to see 1, 2, 3. You're not going to see another customer with that number 1. This is called the primary key. And it's not going to have duplicate data in it. And having it connect to another unique column that doesn't have duplicate data is going to be called a foreign key. So we have a primary key and a foreign key. So a primary key connects to a foreign key, and that's how the relation happens between both tables. But today, let's talk about some more vocabulary. Today, we're going to be creating dropping, and then actually today we're just going to be creating, and we're going to be using select and join. But this is some of the stuff that can happen within SQL. So we have SQL can create, drop, alter, and tourniquet, which is going to be called our data definition language. It can also insert, update, and delete. This is called the data manipulation language. And then it can select and join, which we'll be doing today, is going to be our data query language, is why we're going to be writing queries today. And then it can also, on top of that, do grant and revoke if you have any users. And that's going to be our data control language, or it's also called a transaction control language. Now, we won't be doing any grant or revoke, but we will be using the insert, update, delete, select, and join. And we will be creating. We will not be dropping, altering, or tourniquet today. But so you will be using 3 different types of data language within our SQL session today. Our basic SQL, our basic SQL statements. So to start off, before I start talking about the basic SQL statements, you also have to learn that anything that comes out at the bottom of your data grid, if you're looking at your environment as of now, at the bottom, anything that comes out is going to be called a view, a virtual table. This can be, it's kind of like if you ever use a calculator and you write in all of your, you write in like 2 + 2 and it comes out with 4, but then you can delete it and then have another, or clear it. I mean, I shouldn't use the word delete. I should use the word clear. You can clear it out and write another equation and get that answer again. It's just like that. So you have a view and you connect these tables, you look at your information, and then you're done with it. So then you clear it out and you put 2 other tables together and find that information again. And you, again, like I said last session, you don't actually go in, you don't mess within the actual data table. Let's say another department has, you just look at the data that you need and view it. That's why it's called a view, and then give it back to that department. For on this side, this is a little bit more advanced, but I do want to mention it. So you do have this thing called index, which you can look into and make your queries, like the way you write and set up your queries, a lot faster. And this is a little bit more advanced, but I do want you to know that there is a way that these queries that you're going to be writing today, there are different ways to write them so that they do pull your information faster than if and save you time in the end if you just want to look at something really quickly. So there is different ways to write queries. Okay, so today's goals, our whole picture today is I want you to be able to take any data set, import it into the database. I want you to be able to sort and look through the data set. I want you to be able to create your own data and then input that data. I also want you to be able to join that data together. That is the goals for today. In the smaller part of this, you should be able to use basic SQL commands, write a query, join 2 data sets together, and then understand what's happening behind the scenes of the query that you're writing. Okay. Today's data, the data files that we just downloaded, okay? So it's modified data. So I modified these data sets for the workshop itself. You should have 4 files in total, which I explained earlier in the session today. We have state crime CSV file, and that's information on the crime rates and totals of states across the United States for a wide range of years. And the reports go from 1960 all the way to 2019. Yes, you only downloaded 2. So the other 2 are, like I said, going to be for the activities after this, if you would like to just get more, have more practice on SQL. But I did provide you those as well. So the state demographic CSVs and SQL files. That state computer data is what we're going to be using today, but the state force CSV and the state people is for your activities after this workshop for you to try out yourself. And you'll see what those activities are throughout the session. So you'll see that everything I'm teaching you, you'll be able to do with those files. Yeah. And then, the state demographics is actually summarized information obtained by the state in the United States from 2015 through 2019. And it's from the United States Census Bureau that I got it from. And again, I took this data and then I cut it so that we can be able to join it. Okay. So let's talk about our basic SQL commands. Now I'm just going to show you this really quickly. This is our hands-on agenda, but we'll go over this at the end to see if we met all of these marks here today, okay? So after that quick lecture, I hope, let's go into data, our data group and start off by writing a comment, okay? So I want everybody to be on this page. Again, is anyone, so we did write our create database QCL workshop. We created the database. And we also opened a new console. Anyone not have this new console open? Okay, so let me show you how to do that. You're gonna go to our SQL workshop. Do you see that on your left-hand side? Okay, right click on that. Click on new, then click query console. That should open up a whole new console. Great. Now that we're on here, if you look at your right-hand side for everybody, make sure that you do have SQL workshop at the right top. Does anyone not have SQL workshop?
QCL workshop.
QCL workshop, sorry, QCL workshop. Anyone not have QCL workshop? No? Okay, great, awesome. Okay. All right, so let's go over and write our talk about comments. Now in data grip or any type of SQL program, you are going to be doing so much coding that you're not going to remember why you wrote a query down, why you wrote any line of code down. So you want to write yourself a couple notes so that you know why you wrote that query. So let's start off by everyone. I want you to do a / and then I call it a wild card because that's usually what it's called, but it's the little star on top of, it's usually under the 8. Okay, anyone not find those two? Okay, great. All right, so this is the start of writing a comment. This is how you're always going to open it. You're going to do the / with the wild card, and you're going to hit a space, and then you can just start typing. I want everyone to write their name. I'm going to write my name. Okay. So now we know who's doing this script. Okay, so now after that, let's close it off so that we can now write our queries. There's 2 ways to do this. You can close it off just by putting hitting enter or return, which will put you down to the next line and it'll automatically make it for you. Or if you didn't do that and you just want to have it on the same line, you'll just do what you just did at the beginning backwards. So it'll be the wild card and then / Okay. Now you have wrote your first comment on, and if you decide to, let's say, highlight this and run it with any query, it will ignore anything in between those 2 / symbols, and it will just run anything that is outside of that. Okay, so let's, so now everyone has written their first comment. Let's go off and start off to the next section. Okay, so again, I provided you the slides in case you are behind. A lot of these slides are just going to be what we're going through. So I'll probably be going through the slides really quickly. Okay, all right. So in most of our programs that you'll be using SQL, the way I asked everyone if they were connected to sorry, I should have closed that. If you were connected to the database by looking up here to the right-hand side at the top, okay? But in most programs, you actually have to call that. So I'm going to teach you how to call your database when you're on a script file that does not have this button here. Let's say you're using a different, not Datagrip, but a different SQL program. So I want everyone to write use, and then it would be QCL workshop. Now, once I start typing that in, you see that it starts to auto finish it for me. Does everyone see this auto finish? I'm sorry, does anyone not see this auto finish? Raise your hand. Okay, great. So we're going to be using this auto finish for wording, the ID a lot. We're going to, so that you can type faster all these queries, because if not, you'll be here forever typing. Okay, so just click on that. I think for Windows, it's twice. I'm not sure for Mac, but I'm guessing for Mac, it's also twice because we're in the program. Okay, then you're going to do, anytime you do any type of query or code, yes, autocomplete. Anytime you do a query or code, you do have to have that semicolon in the end. So make sure you have that semicolon to say, this is where I want you to end this query, this line of code. So now to learn how to highlight faster, because I found this out recently, the highlight, which for Mac, it's different. So let me see what for Mac it was. For Mac, you're going to do command return. And for PC, it's control return. Let me put myself back on where I'm at. So for all our Mac, do command return. For PC, it's control return. And that is going to actually just do the automatic, it should have highlighted, but it automatically did the green button execute for me. Did it highlight for everyone and then execute it? So at the bottom, it says use SQL QCL workshop. Great. Okay. So this is going to call. So if this wasn't, this right-hand side database connection wasn't there, it would have automatically made that into the QCL workshop. So that's just a quick tip I needed to give you in case you are using something different than this program. Here we go. All right. Let's import our CSV and get started on our data. Okay, so to start that off, I want everyone to go over to your left-hand side. There is a, you see this little arrow? If you click on that, there's nothing there, correct? You have no tables or anything. So let's add a table into our database. I want everyone to highlight QCL workshop, right click on it, go all the way down until it says import data from file. Okay, I want you to click on that, and it's going to bring up all of your files within your computer. You need to navigate to where you downloaded that file. Okay, so for most of you, it's going to be within downloads, and then it's going to be in your SQL folder. For others who just download just the single one, you have to navigate to that single, those two single files that you found, that you downloaded. So anyone having trouble finding these files? Remember, we're going to be in the SQL folder, or for some of you, it's the statecrime.csv. Okay, I'm guessing everyone has found their files. let's go over and click on statecrime.csv within the folder or just the file itself. And click OK. Okay. This is the window that should have popped out once you click on that file itself and click OK. Anyone not on this window? Okay, I see no hands raised, so I'm happy everyone's following along. Let's so as you see here, when you open this, you'll have all of your data in a little data preview here. You will also have kind of like a C1, C2, C3. Some of you might have this, some of you might not, because the most important thing on this window, is that you need to click on first row is a header. This is going to now give us our first row, which is our column names. It's going to put it right where it used to say C1, C2. Okay. Anyone having trouble with the first row as header? Do they not see the header names on their little preview here? Hands raised? No? Okay, great. All right, so right next to our header names, you're gonna see these orange, amber colored words that say text, int, double, and you're probably wondering, what is this? Well, this is gonna be what type of data you have within each of your columns. So there is within SQL and also coding programs, each of your data is going to fall within a data type. So if you have, let's say ABC, so if you have any names, you have, let's say emails, that's often going to be called either text or varchar. There's tons of names for these, but as long as you know one of them, you'll be able to navigate through the rest of them. So text and varchar is what we're going to be using today, but it's also often called string. But today we're just going to be using text. As you see in front of you in your window, you'll see the word text as that type of data, that data type. Then you'll have the int, which is also known as integer. And that's going to be like your whole numbers, your 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That's pretty much like 100, 200. That's going to be your whole numbers. And that's often called int or integer. Remember last session, I said that there's all these different types of servers and databases that have the only difference is your syntax. This is what I was talking about. Some of them are going to be called text. Others are going to be, they're going to call like your words varchar. It just depends on what type of server or program you're using. That's going to change. That's what's going to change this. But today for MySQL, you're going to be using text and you're going to be using int, and you're also going to be using double. Okay. And double is actually just going to be for decimals. That's what double, real, and float mean. So if you're using double, real, or float, you're also you can then just substitute that in your head for decimal. Okay. So these are the different types of data you'll see. There are tons of them though. This is just literally like 0.0001% of what type of data types there are out there. And what they're named. So I'll show you some resources afterwards so that if you do run into anything that's different from this, you can connect it. Okay, let's go back to importing. And that is here. Okay, so you're on this window. You have your table name as state_crime. You're looking at your column names, and they're all the names to make more sense. It's not C1, C2, so you don't understand what column you're looking at. You now have that information here. You have your data type, what type of data you have within each of your columns, which you see a preview down here. You have state, crime year, population. And you also make sure the most important thing of this window to have that first header, first row is a header checked. Click import. That was it for this whole thing. Okay. Now on your left-hand side, under your QCL workshop, a new folder pops out. It says tables. Then a table pops out. It says state crime. And then under that, it gives you your column and your column names. Now, if we would have left that unchecked, you would just see C1, C2, C3, C4, all the way down. So does anyone not see these headers, these titles of your columns here? Raise hand if you don't. Okay, great. So I'm glad. Okay, so let's go on and go to the next section. Okay. All right, so for anyone that doesn't see this, and this is a also happens in every program that you use SQL in, sometimes you import it and it's not there. And you're like, why is it not there? I know I imported it. Often it's just a refresh. You just have to refresh it. So let me show you how to do that in case later on in the session, once we're, sorry, it's not, here we go. Once later on in the session, so you know how to refresh in case you don't see your tables on this side. So you're going to right click on QCL workshop, going to go all the way down and it's going to just say refresh. If you've ever tried to buy concert tickets or anything from the past where you were on ticket, trying to get those concert tickets, you can also do Control F5 and just keep hitting that until you see it. You just hit it once. We're not buying concert tickets today. Let's see. So let's go back here. And now that you have your first table imported into your data grid, let's talk about how to write a query. Now we get into the real stuff of SQL, like the meat of everything. So there is, today, we're not going to be going through every single one of these, but we are going to be learning how to write select from, if we can get to it, join, where, and then I believe order by. We will not be covering group by, having, and limit, because that is aggregates, and that will be a next time if we ever get called back for this one. Okay, but this is how you write a query. This is the steps on how to write a query. You need to have from after select. You need to have join in between from and where. You need to have where after from. So when you're writing a query, depending if you have a join or you don't have a join, you need to have these in this order. So select is first, always first when you're writing a query, and then from, and then join, then where, then group by, then having, then order by, then limit. Now, if you do decide to do SQL after the session in the future, make sure that you understand this concept, because this is what's going to make writing a query very easy, by understanding this here, that this is the order you need to write everything by, because everything you import in between all of these, anything that you write in between all of these is just take from this. This is the table I want you to look at. These are the columns I want you to look at. It's all of that in between that. And that's what we're going to do right now today. Okay, so let's start off by looking at, so we imported a table, but we don't see it down at the bottom of our view. We want to take a look at our table real quick. So let's write first a comment, because we want to make sure later on when we're looking back at this, that we know why we're doing this. So let's write select with wildcard, because that's what you're going to be doing right now. And then remember, however you opened it, so the way you opened it's the way you close it for your comment. Go on to the next line, and let's see that table. let's have it right in front of us at the bottom as our view. So I want everyone to start writing in select. Now remember, I did say that however you're writing your queries, make sure to be consistent on upper or lower. Now, when you're writing select, make sure to be consistent. So it already auto completes for you. So you can double click, have that started. And then you're going to do the wildcard that we did before. This wildcard means that you are selecting every single column within your table. Every single one. That's what wildcard means. Every data that you have, anything that you have within that table is going to be selected. Everything. Okay. Now, how do you tell data grip, hey, I want you to select all this, but from where? We have to tell it what table to go from. So remember, we start with select. What's the next step? It's from, right? Because we have to write in a certain order. So let's do from. And do you see how I have a uppercase and lowercase? Just make sure to stay consistent, right? So for me, I'm going to do uppercase for everything except for, and I'll show you this, our column names. You see how they have uppercase and lowercase within? You just have to stay the same with these. So you'll have an uppercase S and then a lowercase t-a-t-e. But for your selects and from, make sure just to have the same uppercase. This is just I guess you could say it's a personal preference, but if someone looks through your code, you don't want it to be all messy. You want it to be consistent and look professional. If you have all these different types, like if you have select like this, and then you have from that it's not capitalized, it's just a little messy. You just want to be consistent with how you're writing it. Okay, so let's, once you do space, right, you're going to come up with all these autocompletes. And you're going to have all these different types of options, but we know, and you will know when you're working with your data, what the name of your table is going to be. Now, we only have one table imported so far within our database. So for this one, we know it's going to be state crime. So I want everyone to double click on that. And I want you, again, for you to close this off. Remember, it's going to be a semicolon, semicolon to close it off so that DataCrypt knows this is the end of my query. I don't want you to run anything after this. So if you decided to run all this together, it's going to run this one first, and then it's going to run this one, but it's going to stop it between them first before running the next one. If you decided not to have that there, first off, it'll give you an error. And second off, it won't move on to the next section. It'll just think that this whole thing is all together, especially if you didn't have this semicolon, it will just run this one and ignore this one. So you want to have that semicolon at the end so that DataGrip understands that this is the end of your query. Okay, so I taught you before the command return or command enter. This is the time to do that. And then it should highlight green. And it's going to give you two options. You're going to click on select from state crime. And it should then pop out at the bottom with your view. Anyone not get the view at the bottom? Hands raised. Okay, great. All right, so in your view here, you can now see that we have every single column that we have on our left-hand side. We have all those columns now displayed with all the data. Okay, let me move this up a little so you can see. So we have all our data that is 2019, we have 2010 here and 2014 when it comes to crime, our state crime. Okay, so this is a quick way to look at all your whole table in whole, so you know what you're dealing with. You can look at it quickly and be like, okay, I have 7 up here at the top. It left-hand side, it also says 7, but you can, if you wanted to, if you're on a different program, you can count through them and be like, okay, I have 7 columns. I have how many up here? On your left-hand side at the top of the view, it tells you how many rows you have. So you can quickly see, okay, I have 156 rows, and it's a really quick way to get a demographic of your table itself so that you can then later on do all of the analysis that you need to do, okay? So that is our first query. Congratulations, everybody. So let's go on and look at it from a more detailed view. I have a detailed view for each one of these, but I'll probably not go through each one of them. This is for your notes, so you know what's going on after the session, okay? So we have our select statement, our select here that says, what do we want to see? That's what select is saying. Then our wildcard selects all, and then our from is asking, what table would you like? You name your table, and then you have your syntax, which is the semicolon. This is how to write a query in a nutshell. But remember, if we're going to add stuff to it, it'll come afterwards. This is how you start a query always. Okay. And then I give you an example. I give you for each of them, I'm going to give you what you should be seeing on your screen. So there's the view. All right, so now let's say that we want to just look at certain columns. We don't want to see every single column that we have here, right? At this point, I'm going to do this. Please let me know if this is too small for you to see. Can you, I know you might not see this side, but I just need you to see the data grip side. Is everyone good with how it's viewed here? Okay, great. I don't want it to be too tiny for you. Okay, so here we go. So let's do our select with columns. We're gonna first write our comment saying what we're doing, because later on, you're gonna look at this in 5 years when you guys are all masters at SQL and be like, what was that for? No, you'll be masters. You'll know exactly what it was for. So then let's do select with column. Oh. Select with columns. Okay. And then remember to close it off the way you opened it, right? All right. So once you go to right underneath that, you're going to hit enter and go on to the next line. We're going to start off our query. And how do we start that off? With select, because select is how you start off all of your queries when you want to look at within your data. So we're going to do, again, I'm going to stay consistent and write my select all capital. And then I'm going to then ask, what columns do I want to see? Well, the columns I want to look at today with you guys is going to be population, total property theft, total violent robbery. And let's write that in so that we can see that data in just those columns itself. So once you hit the letter P, guess what happens? It auto completes for you and gives you, gives you the option, well, are you talking about population from the table state crime? And you're like, yeah, I'm talking about that. So then you're gonna double click on that and it's gonna turn red. And the reason why is because you want to then syntax, put a comma in between each one of those columns. You need to put a comma in between each one of them, or it's going to think that it's one big name for a column. So each column name is going to be in between a comma. So our next one, you can start writing it in. It's going to be our total violent, and I believe it's theft. So we get 2 options. We have total violent robbery and total property theft. The only difference in clicking these is going to be, how do you want it to come out? Which one do you want to be next to population? The way you write in your columns into these queries is the way it's going to pop out in your view. So you want total property theft as your first one. hit a comma, go to the next one. Now, at this time, you can put it right underneath your population. And I should start talking about this here. So you have your select, right? You have your column name. It is proper in, it is professional proper in SQL to write it so that it's underneath each other, the column names, so that it's an easier view. If you would like to write it in a line, that is fine. That's perfect personal preference for you, but it's going to be a little tough going back and forth. It's easier just to have it go down underneath. It's just like I said before, it's between having a someone going into your data to help you out and being like, oh, this is really messy, to it being like, oh, okay, so these are the columns that you have, and seeing it in a much more pleasant view, I guess. So yeah, so that's gonna be our total property theft. Let's put in our next column, and we have total violent robbery. That is the next one we should put in. Again, we get red. Let's do, for this one, we don't do a comma. The reason why we don't do a comma is because it's the last column that we're looking up. So you have a comma in between each of your columns, but on your last column, no comma at all. And that's the syntax on how to do your that first part of select. You're going to then push enter. And again, what are we asking? What's the next section? What we now have asked it, okay, I want you to look at these columns, but then we have to tell it from where. Where do you want me to look at this, look for these columns from? Well, we know what table we want, right? So we're going to do our statement from, again, be consistent with the upper and lowercase. And once you hit space, it's going to give you your options. And we know what table we're working with. So we're going to do state crime. Okay. And then to close it off, how would we close it off? With that semicolon. Oops, semicolon. Okay. And then I taught you this before, command command return for Mac, control enter for PC. It's going to highlight it green, and then you're going to click where it says statements, the statement that you are going to run. And now, if we look at our view, guess what? We only have those 3 columns, but we still, if you're on your left-hand side, we still have that, that whole table that is there. We just pulled out those 3 just to look at real quick. And again, if you go out here to and click on these 2, we don't see the old one where we had the wild card to see all of the columns. It's like just clearing it and being able to run your formula and your code, and then you clear it again. So you find that you do your analysis really quickly, and then you're done with the data. But if you come back, let's say a week later, and you're like, wait, I need to run that again, you have this ready to run at any point. I can go back and just run this one and just highlight this and hit this, the execute button. I can see the whole table, or I can clear it off again and just highlight what we just did and just see those 3 columns. This view is literally a very temporary look into your table. So we have our population, we have our total property theft, and our total violent robbery. They're all integers. Do you see that? They're all whole numbers. There's no decimals, and there's no text. So we do know that we have, and the great thing about Data Grip, one of my favorite things, is if you look on your left-hand side here, you can see what type of data it is. A lot of the programs don't actually show you this. This is why Data Grip, I really like it, because it gives you the data type on the side. So if you go here, oh, and guess what? I said they were I said that they were whole numbers, but they actually are doubles. So that means that they're decimals. So these, there should be a decimal somewhere within our data here, but these have end up to be decimals. Okay. So this is a really good way to check your data to see what type of data type you have in there. In case someone wrote like an NA or a missing data in there, you can see that because it'll come in as text and not as, like, let's say, an integer. All right, so let's go on to the next section. Now that was select. We just did select our first writing of query of select. Let's go on. Oops, let's do that. Okay, so let me move this over. Okay, so again, select says, what did you see? We did our column names. What do you want to see? We wrote, okay, we want to see these columns from what table, and then we wrote the table we want it from, and then our syntax. Make sure that you have the commas, and then you have that semicolon at the end. Okay, and then again, I gave each one of these, I'm going to give you a picture of what you should see. Now, remember I told you that you would be doing activities if you like after the session. This is one of the activities. It's embedded in between all of the slides for you to be able to do after the session. Let's go on to the where clause. Now remember, let me go back up here. We did select, we did from, select and from, which you'll always have in any query that you do with select. You're always going to have a from what table. Now we're going to move on to where. Now we're skipping join for now, but we're going to move on to where, and where filters data based on the request. So where is going to filter our data. So let's say that we want to only see total violent robberies that are over 3,000. And that's all we want to see in that column. All that data, all those rows, anything that is over 3,000 only, 3,000 and greater. So let's write that in and figure that out. First, let's write our comment so we know what we're doing. So where clause. Okay. And then close off that comment. And you go down to the next line, and now we're going to write in that where clause. So let's start off by doing select. It auto completes for us. And now we're going to start writing in our next column we would like to see is actually the same columns we had before. So population, comma, go on to the next row, total and its property theft, comma, total violent robbery, comma, oh, actually no comma on that one. Remember, it's our last column within our select statement. Now we're going to say from what table we would like it to come from. It auto completes for us. So we're going to do state crime. Okay. And then for that, we're going to then hit the semicolon to go on. Oh, sorry, not semicolon, because that is to close it off. We're going to then go to the next line to now do our where clause. Okay. With the where clause, the way you start it, you just say where we would like it to start filtering from. Okay. And we're going to tell it what column to use to filter. So what column would we like to use? Total violent robbery. Okay. Double click on that. And now we're going to give it a condition. We're going to say, hey, I want you to filter in this column, and this is the condition that I want you to do. So you're going to do greater than equal 3,000 and close it off with that semicolon. anytime you do a where clause, you're going to have the comment first, the column first, and then you're going to have if it's equal, if it's greater than, if it's less than, and then whatever you're going to then do that less than and greater than after it, and then the semicolon to close it off. So command and return for Mac, control enter for PC, click on your option to do your statement. And guess what? If you look at your data you can, if you go down to the view and you go in between your columns, there's going to be a 2 arrows going both ways. You can use that to make it make your columns bigger. Okay. But if you look at your total violent robbery, you're not going to find any data that's under 3,000. Okay. So we know that this has worked well. It went from 156 rows down to 65. And look, it says here, the where clause, because we gave it a comment name. Okay. And so anyone not get this result in your view? But no hands up. Okay, great. Thank you, Dan, for the for that. The rates are decimals. Yes. Okay, great. I just saw that comment. Sorry. All right, so let's go on and see what's really going on underneath. Oh, if I can, there we go. Okay. So our detailed view. So we know our select, our from. Let's look at our where. So after our from, we have to start with that where. We have to then give it a condition and remember to do that syntax. So these detailed views are for you to really understand what's going on in between with each one of your queries. Okay. Now in your data, you might have a different column name, but have here instead equals to, let's say you're doing an assignment on cats, right? I don't know why you would, but you're doing an assignment on cats and you want it to be equal to a certain type of cat. You would then do a where clause and put type of cat and then equals to, let's say, a feline or a black cat, right? You will have black cat there and you'll only see those come out. That's what that where clause is for that filter. Okay. I gave you what you should see when you do that. And let's go on to order by. Okay, order by is great because it organizes all of your data that you are importing and putting onto your program together. So let's start off by doing a comment. So let's see, we're going to call this order by. I always have the uppercase turned on. There we go. It always looks like I'm yelling when I type. Okay, so order by. So how do we start off a query? This is now second nature. We're going to start it off with select. Okay. And then we're going to then write what columns we would like to see. For this one, I want to see 5 columns. I want to see state, population, total property theft, total violent robbery, and crime year. You guys can already get started. You already know how to do that part. So we'll do state, and I'll do it with you. So as you can see, it comes up with the table itself. It also comes up with the column. If you look at the little picture next to state, it shows you a little line. That means it's a column, and our state crime is going to table is going to look like a whole table without that little kind of like highlighted line and on the first column. All right, so we're going to do state. Remember to put that syntax, that comma in between each one of your columns. Population, total theft, total robbery, and lastly, crime year. Okay. Now remember, it's red and it's giving us that that error so far is because it doesn't know where to find that information. So let's do from. Okay. And then we're going to do it from state crime. Okay. You're going to have that semicolon, right? To close it off, we're going to do command return for Mac, command enter for, right? Nope, exactly. We're missing our where and our order by, remember? So we're gonna do where, and we're gonna keep it the same. We're gonna do our total robbery, our greater equal to 3,000. And now that we have that where, we're still not done. We're going to do that order by. Okay. So order by, and this time I wanted to filter it by total violent robbery, but I also want to do the population. I want to order it by population. Okay. Now, in most programs, the population, if you don't write anything here, it's going to ascend. It's going to do the data ascend. All of your stuff is going to be from A to Z. If not, if you do write ASC for this program, you have to write that you want it to ascend, but we're going to do descend for this one because we want everything that's that is greater at the top and everything that's lower at the bottom. So we are going to highlight that. And once we run that, we're going to see all of our information now with the population at the top. United States is kind of like the total of everything. That's why it's at the top, but you can see here our population, the highest one is us, California. And our crime years are now here in order. So we have 2019, 2014, and 2010. That's why you see it 3 times. And then lastly, anything in between total violent robbery, all of this is going to be filtered by 3,000. Okay. So now you're able to filter and you can order your data. Okay. All right. Now that was, so I give you an activity for activity 2. Let's create a table. Okay. So now you know how to import data. You know how to kind of look it into your data. Let's create a table real quick. Now before, make sure to write create table as your title for this section. All right. I'm just going to leave it like that. Okay. Before I said all of your queries start with select, right? And you're like, you're a liar. This one says create table, right? Well, yes, because that is, we were writing queries. This is data manipulation. Now we are manipulating your database, right? I believe it's manipulation. Let me just make sure that I'm saying the right thing. I don't want to give you guys the wrong thing. Sorry. It is called data definition language. We are creating data definition. We are defining, okay? So let's define that. Boop. Okay, so let's start off by writing create table, because that's what we're doing. We're gonna tell data group we are creating a table today. And we're going to call it state and make sure that it's the correct lower type of lowercase or uppercase. So case. So computer data. And then our syntax for this is the table name that I want you to name it. And then this is going, anything in between these 2 parentheses is going to be my columns. That's what you're telling it. Okay. So you have your state as your first column. And then we have to tell it what type, what's your data type. because it needs to know what type of data you're going to put in there, right? So capital, it's going to be all uppercase. If you are doing uppercase, remember to stay consistent. Lowercase if you've been doing lowercase. You're going to call this a varchar. Remember I told you it's going to be either text or varchar. The great thing about data grip is that you can actually put varchar and it can convert it into a text. Okay. So, and this one is actually going to be on the next section so you guys could see it. Okay. And then it's going to ask how many characters, how many texts, how many letters do you want within this column? I'm like, I don't think I'm going to have any states that are more than 20 letters long. So I'm going to put 20. Okay. That's how many you would like to have characters you have. And then you're going to put a parenthesis between on as the syntax. And then you're going to do a comma like we have been doing in between each of your columns. Make sure that that yellow parentheses stays there because you need to have that yellow parentheses to close off this section. Okay. So let's hit space with the have it there next to the cursor. We're going to then write persons. Remember to write it exactly how you see it. So persons underscore per household. So per underscore household. This is going to help when you import your data. It will import it the same. Okay. And then our data type for this is going to be float. Like I said before, this is going to be your decimal, comma. Okay. I'm going to do the next one is going to be household. Our next column is going to be named household. Now this is going to be the most typing you do because you are setting up this here. Okay. And then float. Okay. This one's going to be a float and last column. Because if you don't have all of these, it won't work. With and underscore. And look, I spelled computer wrong. I just caught myself with it. Okay. Internet. And then float. Okay. So once you have all of your columns ready and you do your close off of your semicolon, you can do that command return or return control enter. Once you click on that, if you go over to output, it's going to tell you that you have created a table. Your output tells you what you're doing within SQL, and your view, which is a little box here of table, tells you what shows you your old one actually, because you haven't put anything within your table. The last thing I'm going to show you today, because we are at 4:30 as of now, I'm going to show you how to import that data that you have here. Okay, so let's import that data. Okay, I want everybody to go and navigate to the files that you have. So mine are going to be here. So you're going to go into, I don't want that one. I want this one. Okay, you're going to go into your files. So here are my files. Oops. And then here are my files. And then here is your data group, right? You're going to go to the one that says state computer data. If you look at what we just created to that file name is exactly the same thing. The only difference is the insert. I just added that insert so you know to insert it into here. You're going to drag and drop that into your data grid. Okay. It's going to tell you in data grid that that SQL dialect is not confirmed. You're going to go over to your right-hand side. It says generic SQL. You're going to click on that. And you're going to put, it should be MySQL somewhere here, MySQL. Okay. It's going to then know it's MySQL. Then where it says session, you're going to put the console you've been working in. I believe ours is console 1. No, mine is console 2. It's going to be up here at the top. You see console. Mine is console 2. Yours might be console 1. Okay. And then once you do that, state computer, if we did everything correctly, which it looks like, okay, once you do that, you're going to go over to where it says schema, because it's going to change over. And you're going to put SQL workshop because you want to connect it to your database. Okay. After all that's done, you'll see that all of the colors all look like you've been putting into your, there's no red, there's no yellow, there's just a little light bulb. You're going to highlight everything. So control, you're going to highlight everything that you have. So command return or control enter. And well, mine says that I have an error, but it should go into correctly. Syntax manual, because okay. So it says that this one is not line 1. So there's something that we did here on this one, that float control. One of these is wrong, and I don't know which one. Command. We created the table. This is from, let's look at this. And most of SQL is going to be going back and forth into your data to see what you did differently to what it is. So internet, computer, per household, person, households, households, state, varchar, and then state computer data. That should be right. I wonder why it's not going in. Your error, syntax error manual. Let's do this first one. Okay. Enter persons, households with internet. I think it's this last one that it's saying that I didn't write it correctly. So this is pretty much how you would do SQL. I actually am out of time for the session, but there's one last thing that I would like to show you that is happening in the background. And I will absolutely figure out why that is not working and send that back to you through an email if I can. But it should have worked. I don't know why. Okay, so the operational order. So remember how I said that everything, all your queries are going to be select, and you have like a certain way that you have to write it. We have to write it with select, from, join, where, in this order, correct? In DataGrip, the way that it takes it, it's from, join, where, and then group by. It takes it in a different way than how you input it. So it first looks at the table, what table you want it from, then it joins it, then it does where, then it does group by. Okay. Lastly, you can save by doing that file save as at the top. And then here are some resources that you can, if you would like to learn more. I say the best way to learn stuff is by playing a video game. I know that a lot of people like the classroom setting. I myself like video games. This right here is the best way to learn, is your SQL murder mystery. It's a really cool little video game that it's not really a video game because you're just putting in text, but it makes you solve a mystery and you learn at the same time, which is my favorite. And then here's some contact info. I will try to figure out what's going on with that, update those slides for you, okay? Oh, also, okay, let me just show how to save because I do have that question, and then I will turn it over to you, Josh, okay?
Thanks for that.
Yeah. I know that we all have meetings, so I don't want to keep you that long. Okay, so go up to File. You're going to be in your console, console 2. Go up to File, hit Save As. And then it's going to save it as an SQL. Yeah. Or I believe, yeah, it's going to save it as an SQL. so that you can then import it back into your data grip when you're ready. You can also import this into any SQL program that you have. So, but SQL is the only thing that's going to be able to read it. You're going to put where you want to save it. Mine is going to be under downloads, under that folder SQL, and it's going to make another folder called SQL. So it's going to be SQL into a folder named SQL. And then you click OK. And then you should have this within your files, which is for me would be downloads. And I don't know which one of these. I believe it's this one. So it's SQL, SQL, and then here's my console too. So wherever you save it is where you're going to find it. And you can name it whatever you would like. Is that a good?
Awesome. Thank you so
Yeah.
much, Vanessa. I can't tell you how much I appreciate it. So all of our group here, what I'm going to do is, as you can see, the session was recorded. So hopefully, Vanessa, assuming you're okay with it, when you
Yes.
send me your slides, I will get this recording put together in a link and send the slides over to everyone who is here today so that you can follow along and do it at home. And if you have any questions, please feel free to send Vanessa or myself an email, and we'll be able to connect you all through. And on that note, thank you all so much for spending what has now basically been 4 hours over the course of 2 weeks with us. I really hope that you will all continue to join us for additional virtual programs, both with the QCL, but also on different topics throughout the spring semester and hopefully continually.